Hi everyone! So it's 3 p.m., which means it's time to start our live broadcast of JDC Entwine. We're gonna take it a bit slow, let people trickle in, but if you're joining us, my name is Ksenia and I am the founder and blogger behind At the Immigrants Table. At the Immigrants Table is a blog documenting recipes from my experience, which is my Jewish Russian background. I was born in Russia in the former Soviet Union and grew up in Israel, and I arrived in Canada about 14 years ago. Give and take, in the middle, went to do my master's in Israel. You know how it goes, few of our lives are linear these days. But I've been in Canada for about 14 years. I now live in Montreal, so welcome to my Montreal kitchen in the time of Corona. And it would be really interesting to hear where you guys are from, so if you want to let us know in the comments where you're from, I would love to know that. Just a couple of words about, again, why you're here, what this is. So this is a broadcast I'm doing for JDC Entwine. The reason that I got involved with JDC Entwine was now about 5 years ago. I went on a Russian-speaking trip to Russian-speaking young professionals trip to Argentina. It was an amazing experience that literally changed my life. I met some of the most incredible people that I'd ever hoped to meet. If any of them are watching right now, you know I love you guys. We're still in touch with a lot of them. And it introduced me to the world of JDC Entwine. Before that, I would always hear about the joint growing up in Israel, but it didn't have a face, it didn't have a meaning. Going to Argentina and seeing what JDC does in these parts of the world to this day, and not just in the memory of my family in the former Soviet Union, really opened my eyes to the great need that there still is in our Jewish community and to how interconnected we all are. And so that really, really kind of solidified what entwine means, which is the interconnectedness of all of us. So a few years ago, 3 years ago in fact, Entwine approached me asking me to partner with them on the Reordered project. As most of you probably know, the Reordered project is a reimagining of the Seder of the Haggadah, which unfortunately couldn't be more timely as it is today. So 2 years ago, I did one iteration of the cookbook, and then last year we updated it to add 4 communities. Now we have 8 communities. And if you have the cookbook and the kit at home, I hope you've taken a look and scrolled through some of the recipes. We're not going to talk about the kit too much, just to say that you can still tune into it virtually and get a digital copy. But we're going to focus on one of the recipes from the kit, which is the traditional Ukrainian plov. Now I'm going to tell you guys, hi Liat Raviv, hi Liat, hi. I'm gonna tell you guys to actually, if you're cooking this with me, now is the time to start. If you need to follow the recipe and you don't have the Entwine kit in front of you, you don't have the digital copy, it is on my blog. All you have to do is go to immigrantsTable.com and do a search for plov, P-L-O-V. So if you need to follow it, that is where we're at. So if you're watching from home, now is the time to start cutting 2 onions and to preheat your pot. So we're gonna preheat our pot to about medium heat. So I'm actually cheating a little bit. I have pre-chopped my onions because my onions are extremely potent and I started crying when chopping them, and I did not want to do that on camera. So my onions are pre-chopped, so I'm just gonna wait for the pan to preheat. Now, why am I cooking plov? I mentioned it's the Immigrants Table. We look at Russian, Israeli recipes. We also highlight recipes from other cultures, a lot of Argentinian Jewish recipes there based on my travel, some Colombian recipes because I married into a Colombian family. So you really kind of bring in the best of all the worlds. But today I really chose to focus on something that is close to my heart and to my family, which I think Passover is the time to do that. So plov is some of you will know it as pilaf, some of you will know it as biryani. It really is the essence of Eastern cooking. It's a rice dish, a jeweled rice dish, so to speak, with additional flavors added to it, some sweet, some savory. In the former Soviet Union, actually, here's a secret, women traditionally do not make plov. So I'm cheating a little bit, but I hope that, you know, the stalwarts among you will forgive me. Usually it's the domain of men to make plov. But I figured, you know, we'll blend things a little bit. So this recipe is something that my grandmother has been making for as long as I can remember. Not always for Passover, sometimes just for a Friday, for a Saturday, Shabbat, for Shabbat dinner. It really speaks of her. It's not heavily seasoned. If you look at biryani recipes from India, there's a lot of spices. In this one, there are no spices. The flavor comes from onion, carrots, ginger, and then there's a number of dried fruit that we add to it. It really is something that is so simple and that takes out the bright flavors that these root vegetables have and brings them into the rice. Now, I also chose this recipe because we're at a very weird time. I don't know if you noticed. It's going to the grocery store is stressful. There are few ingredients around. It's really not a good time to be trying to make extravagant recipes that you've never heard of before and that involve, you know, a myriad of ingredients. So this one is super simple. It's probably things that most of you have at home, but the beauty of it is that it's totally adaptable. If you only have onion and carrots maybe, skip the ginger, it's okay. If you have some of the dried fruit but not others, sorry, if you have some dried fruit but not others, that's totally fine. Use what you have. We are at a time where we need to make changes and we need to make adaptations, so it's all good. Hello to Margarita. Hi, thank you for tuning in. So, like I said, right now I preheated my pan to about medium heat. We don't want to burn the onions. And I added 2 onions diced finely. I'm going to show you guys. So while that's going to cook for about 5 minutes, while that's cooking, we're going to grate our carrots. So like I said, it really, growing up again in the Soviet Union, it actually was some of the best preparation to Corona that you can imagine. That you couldn't rely on any ingredients being at the stores. Things changed by the day. Sometimes you stood in line for 2 hours and didn't get to actually get what you wanted. So this is what it is, and we're okay with that. It's a good opportunity to be adaptable, to cook from the heart, to cook things that speak to you, not necessarily that you saw in a magazine and that looked glossy and involved, you know, all these finagled recipes. They're just simple cooking. And actually, right now, I see the JVC shared the recipe in advance, and you can find a photo of the recipe right now. So if you need to follow, do it. Hi, Lucio. Hi. I mentioned that the blog and Reordered are all an international project, right? And it actually, I should specify that my partner in the blog and in the work we do, her name is Fernanda. She's actually behind the camera right now. You can't see her, but she is from Brazil. And so last year in Passover, her and her husband joined us and their little babies. This year, unfortunately, we can't do that, and we're keeping a safe distance of 1 meter between us. But it's desperate time call for desperate measures, and just a good reminder that even at this time when we can't hug our friends and we can't have Passover with them, it's still an opportunity to connect to each other through food, through these recipes that we share, through cooking together, perhaps online, in a Zoom call with your friends. It doesn't have to be an activity you do alone. Cooking can be enjoyable and even as a group. That's what I like about it. Hello, Andrew. Thank you for joining us. I just want to say, like, if some of you are cooking this, please let us know. If you have questions, if I'm doing something that's confusing, if you want to know more, please let me know. And, you know, if maybe someday, somewhere out there, my grandmother is watching, she can tell us, but she probably isn't, because Facebook Live is a little bit too much. But for me, again, one of the reasons that I chose to cook this live this year is because this is probably the first, this is the first year that I'm going to be doing Passover without any member of my family chosen or birthed. It's the first year that my grandmother, who is 85 and lives alone, is going to be spending Passover alone. So this is my way of connecting to her food. I don't know if, you know, I know that my mom, she may not be cooking plov this year, but she's going to be cooking something else from my grandmother's repertoire, because food and family recipes is what connects us in these weird times. It really is the glue that binds us together. So it's just a way to try and draw linkages between us that don't necessitate us being in the same space. So I'm just gonna. So now that the onions have cooked for a little bit, I'm actually gonna add a little bit more onion. And so we have a question from Eric Miller, who wants to know what I'm cooking. So Eric, and to anyone who's joined later, we are making traditional Ukrainian plov. This is the recipe that my grandmother grew up making, and that we're going to be making today with you guys. So if you're joining us and cooking at home, that's great. So the onions are coming to an end. I'm going to take about a 2-inch piece of ginger. You don't have to take out the ruler or measure it. 2 inches, eyeball it. I have a grater, a microplane grater. You can use any grater, and just add it straight. Whoa. Try not to break your kitchen while you're doing it. Add it straight to your onions before we add the carrots. If you don't have ginger, dry ginger can work just fine. If you don't have dry ginger, regular ginger, skip it. It's not a big deal. It adds a little tiny bit of spice, a little bit of something else, but you can skip it if you want. I'm adding a little bit more oil because my pot is not non-stick. But if you're using a non-stick pot, you don't need a lot of oil. So. Add your carrots to the pot, to the onions and the ginger. I'm going to show you guys what this looks like, but what I can't show you is the smell that's permeating my house right now. So it really is, it's amazing. And all this was just onions, carrots, and ginger. Really, you don't need a lot of fancy ingredients to cook well. So right now we have that on the stovetop. We're gonna just tidy our cutting board a little bit, and we're gonna move on to cutting some of our dried fruit. We're gonna be cutting some of our dried fruit. We also need to add our spices right now, and the only spice that we're using, like I said, really not heavy on the spice, coriander. You need about 2 teaspoons of coriander for this. Again, don't have ground coriander, you have cumin, try cumin. It's not going to be traditionally Ukrainian, but it's going to taste good. If you don't have cumin or coriander, just skip it all together. We added our coriander. We're gonna give it a good stir. And we're gonna add salt and pepper right now. I think in the recipe I specify an amount of salt because it's what you do, but honestly, just use however much salt you think necessary, and then taste and adjust. The beauty is that this dish is gonna taste good even if you don't add a lot of salt because of the carrots and the onions, they have a lot of flavor. And pepper a little bit, not heavy on the pepper. So what we're doing right now is we're letting this cook a little bit. We're letting the carrots soften, the onion soften, okay? I'm just gonna take a peek at my recipe here and make sure that, that I'm not missing anything. So like I said, you have the carrots, you have the seasonings, and now we're gonna start chopping our dried fruit into bite-sized pieces because no, you don't wanna bite into a ginormous prune. You want it to all be a good size. So the dried fruit I have is actually the dried fruit I mentioned in the recipe, but it's totally by accident. I actually have no other dried fruit than what you're seeing right now. So if I had raisins, for example, instead of apricots, I would have used raisins. Because this is not the time to go to the store and look for ingredients. Please, like I want to specify, stay at home. If you have, somebody's asking, can you use dates? Yes, you can. If you're using dates, try and just think about maybe lowering, like if it's dates and prunes, use half the amount of dates that you do prunes because dates are very, very sweet. Okay, but other than that, yes, you can. So I have prunes, apricots, and barberries. I know in advance, you guys probably don't know this, but somebody asked me, what are barberries? And barberries are a traditional Eastern ingredient. They're actually an Iranian, I know them as an Iranian berry. It's called zareshk. If I'm mispronouncing it, please forgive me if there are Iranians among you. But it's very, very common in plov. It's what traditionally gives plov. It's kind of like sour taste. If you do not have barberries, which I discovered yesterday that I have 2 jars of barberries. It's completely random. Probably forgot that I had barberries and then bought some as I want to do occasionally. If you don't have barberries, you can use cranberries. You can use dried cherries. You can use, somebody pointed out, you can use goji berries, totally. Or, again, skip them altogether. It's not mandatory, it's a little something different. So I'm chopping these apricots. I don't know if you guys are doing this at home, but if you are, happy to be joining you. So we need about half a cup of apricots, kind of eyeballing it. And if I'm not looking at you and I'm looking at what I'm cutting, it's because, I still want to keep my fingers. But my apologies. So again, you don't have to get fancy. Now is not the time to whip out your, Culinary Institute of America knife skills. Like, just chop them bite size. Any size that you wouldn't mind getting in your mouth as a piece. Okay? And again, just a reminder, if you are just joining us, I am Ksenia Prince from the blog at the Immigrants Table. It's immigrantsTable.com. I am the author of the reordered cookbook that some of you have at home, hopefully all of you. And if you don't have it yet, you can get a digital copy online on the JDC website, on the JDC Entwine website, and we'll drop the link later. And I'm cooking this for JDC Entwine, and it's in the reordered cookbook. And you can also find it on my blog. Again, this is a recipe that my grandmother has been making for many, many years. And like I said before, this year, at the time of Corona, it's a good way to feel close to her. It's a good reminder that food can connect us even if we're not all together. So we're gonna add this. give it another stir. If you have this on a medium heat, now is the time to lower it to about medium-low. Okay, now we're gonna cut some prunes. I have a bit more prunes than we need. So let's, I'm gonna be a little bit selective. I didn't do it in advance, but I'm taking out any prunes that have a pit because I don't wanna be cutting around the pit right now. Like I said, didn't go to the store to buy pitless prunes today. We're using what we have. If you're eating prunes, then you can usually eat around the pit, but if you're chopping, it's a bit of a hassle. In case you want to see it, I'll actually show you guys how to chop around a prune pit, so if you have your prune, so try and angle your knife and kind of slide it. Actually, some of you are using, if you're using dates that are really kind of where the pit is stuck, you'll also need to do that. So I don't know if you can see, but I'm not chopping hard. I'm just kind of sliding my knife around the prune pit until you get the prune pit. And then you're left with the prunes. I'm just gonna give this all a nice little chop. We have some, and yeah, if you have questions, please put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. Let's see, I think we need a couple more prunes now that I've taken out the ones with the pit. Tell me also in the comments, if you don't mind sharing, what are you guys cooking for Passover? I know that it feels a little counterintuitive to cook for Passover if you're eating it alone, or if you're eating it with, just your immediate family, and you guys could do just eating matzo with chocolate, right? Like with limited ingredients. So why go through the hassle of cooking something elaborate with limited ingredients when you could take it easy? But I actually think that hold on. I actually think that now is even more so the time to cook things that speak to the soul. Again, because otherwise, what other connection do we have? It's a good reminder, wash your hands often, even if you don't have foods on them. I'm actually gonna get myself a glass of water. If you're at home, if you're drinking tea, coffee, water, salud. So I were actually being told, Margarita, you're cooking plov tonight. Tomorrow. I'd love to know what you put in your plov. Is it gonna be meat? This one is meatless, in case I didn't make that clear. You're gonna be making my plov. That's excellent. Thank you, Margarita. I'm happy to hear that. So I mentioned this plov is meatless. A lot of plovs in the former Soviet Union are on the basis of lamb, specifically, but some are beef. So please tell me in the comments, what are you guys cooking for Passover? I would really, really like to know. And last but not least, we're gonna add some barberries. This I'm gonna measure out because they tend to have a very strong flavor. I mentioned in the recipe that you can use a 1/4 cup, or you can use 2 tablespoons, whatever you have. Josh McSiss is making gefilte fish with salmon. Your wife's family's from Seattle. Wow. So it's an interesting time. It's an interesting time. So you're making your gefilte fish with salmon. That's interesting. I actually made gefilte fish for the reordered cookbook. It's a recipe from the same grandmother that I'm cooking today, but she uses carp and white fish, so a bit more traditional. So I'm just gonna, so like I said, we put all of our dried fruit right now, and this is the time where we're gonna add water, okay? So take out a big cup and start filling it with water. the amount of water you need, again, because it's my grandmother's recipe, she eyeballs it. She says, put just enough water to cover. And, sorry, and we have Ellie Carr, who cannot wait for some brisket and Mozzarella soup. That's, I hear you, Ellie, I hear you. These are the best parts, the Mozzarella soup. So we put just enough water to cover. I'm gonna show you guys. Well, I'm tilting it, so it's a little, doesn't look like it's just enough to cover, but in my case, with my pot and the amount, this was this whole cup. So I'm gonna say that was about 2 cups of water, just enough. We're gonna let that sit on medium heat for about 10 minutes. And Jillian Elbaum is making harissa chicken. Oh, see, I love this. I love knowing what people bring to their table because it's completely different. And usually, I know a lot of people for Passover, they have a very strict menu and they follow the same menu every year and they don't deviate from it. But this year, unfortunately, some of us are gonna have to deviate because you can't find your cut of brisket at the store. Or, I'm glad that Jillian has harissa, but it's actually something that's a little harder to find depending on where you are. I actually got quite a few questions, I should say. I got quite a few questions this year. Where can I find matzo flour? Where can I find matzos? And I had to say, I'm in the same boat. I personally eat gluten-free matzos. I can't find them. What am I gonna do? I'm actually gonna make a gluten-free matzo. So, and in the reorder cookbook, you guys have a gluten-free matzo recipe so that you can make it. But that's the reality. I have to make do with what I have. I'm not gonna go running around the city trying to find matzah. It's ridiculous. Do I need to have matzah on the table? For my heart, I do. Do you actually need to? No. But again, this is a good reminder. Make do with what you have. Don't stress yourself. Unfortunately, if there's one semi-positive thing that's coming out of this experience, is I think that a lot of us are remembering what it's like to tone things down a little bit, to get back to basics, to get back to our home, to our heart, to the things we know intuitively, and not to be creative, not to follow, again, these recipes and magazines, but just to follow what you want to eat, what you want to cook, and what you can with your pantry. I could show you guys my pantry. I'm lucky that I have some things stocked, but other things I don't. I'm running out of certain gluten-free flours that I need. That's the reality. I'm gonna make do with others. So we have this cooking on low, medium heat, about 5-10 minutes. We don't have to stress. And now we're gonna add our rice. So for this, I specify you can add to add 2 cups of rice, but the beauty of this, it's totally customizable. 2 cups will feed about 8 people. That's why I mentioned to add 2 cups of rice, because we wanted to make big recipes for the reorder cookbook. But if you're cooking this for 1, add 1 cup. The amount here, you can half everything. So if you're making this for 1, use 1 onion, 1 carrot, 1 inch of ginger, like half of everything, and 1 cup of rice. And you're gonna have enough rice for Passover and a few days later after the Seder. Again, you don't have to follow what the recipe specifies. Now, again, we have a lot of new people joining, so we're making my grandmother's traditional Ukrainian plov. I'm gonna give you a reminder once I add my rice. So I am using regular long grain rice. You can use basmati rice, you can use I wouldn't use short grain unless it's the only one you have. Regular rice will do just fine. So I'm adding 2 cups of rice. And again, the beauty of this recipe is that you're eyeballing a lot. You're eyeballing your water measurements. You're eyeballing you don't have to, again, you don't have to worry about. Now, I want to show you guys, because this is an important moment. I don't mix the rice in. Hold on. I'm gonna tilt this so you can actually see. I don't mix the rice in. I put it on top, okay? The reason I'm doing this is for presentation's sake. So again, we're gonna top this with water. So if you've joined us recently or you're just joining us, we're making traditional Ukrainian plov. What I have going on in the pot is 2 onions cooked until golden, then a 2-inch piece of ginger grated in, then I added 2 carrots grated. Hold on. Shutting off for a second, checking my water measure level, and that should be about fine. So 2 carrots, 2-inch piece of ginger grated in, a little bit of coriander, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and then we added whatever dried fruit we had on hand, which happened to be apricots, prunes, and I had barberries. If you don't have barberries, feel free to use cranberries, sour cherries, or goji berries. Something a little bit sour. If you don't have it, skip it. Make this the way you can. I want to show you guys what the pot looks like now. So it's now our liquid has a nice color. It's from the spices, it's from the dried fruit, it's from the carrots mainly. There's, again, what spices? Like I added coriander. There's very few spices here. We're talking about the simple root cellar ingredients. I'm gonna add more salt at this time because this is not the kind of dish like, this is not the kind of dish that you need to stress about making too salty. But you know, adding a little bit of salt for flavor is always good. In traditional Russian, Soviet Union cooking, we're not talking about a lot of flavor. We're not talking about spices. We're talking about salt, pepper, and traditional, and just root vegetables. So it is what it is. And now that we've added our rice, right, we also want to add 1 tablespoon of oil and just enough, and like I said, we put enough water to cover the rice plus 2 inches up top. It happens to be a traditional 2-to-1 ratio of rice, but like again, just eyeball this. Don't think of the measurement cups. Now, we're gonna take a wooden spoon. Why a wooden spoon? Don't ask me. I do what my grandmother says. So we take a wooden spoon and we poke holes in our rice. We poke about 5 holes. This is important. I know you guys are like, why? Why does it matter? We have water coating. It helps the water get to the bottom. So I'm gonna try and show you what I'm doing. You actually can't really tell if you're really poking, but you gotta feel the bottom and make about 5 holes in your rice. This helps all the flavors travel through all the different layers. And now we're going to cover it. So the way we're gonna do it, and why I need those is it helps the flavors get through because you're not mixing the rice, you're not mixing it with all the flavorings, so you wanna make sure that it actually has the chance to seep through. So now, and it will help release steam and kind of cook the rice more evenly. So like I said, now we're gonna take a clean kitchen towel, gonna take our, actually hold on a sec. We're gonna, because I don't want to leave it on my stovetop and then have things spilling over. I'm gonna take a clean dish towel, cover, take your cover, put the towel over it so that you don't have things hanging off the sides and creating a fire hazard. You want to leave it on about medium heat for about 5 to 10 minutes until you see steam rising. The steam means the rice is cooking, it's coming to a boil. Once you see that, you lower it to the lowest setting, and let it cook like this, untouched, 35 to 40 minutes. What you're doing here is, I know it's longer than rice traditionally cooks, but you want to make sure that your carrot is cooked through, that your dried fruit are cooked through, and you want to let all the flavors blend together. And honestly, like so if you guys are, I know that Margarita is cooking this vlog, but if you don't know what you're cooking for Passover, try to make this. It smells amazing. You don't need a lot of ingredients, and you can customize it based on what you have. So, like I said, we leave it like this, 35 to 40 minutes, and on low heat. Okay? Now, tell me if you have questions. If I wasn't clear up until now, I'd love to know. Just a reminder that we are cooking traditional Ukrainian plov. The ingredients are super simple: onions, carrots, ginger, dried fruit, whatever you have, and very minor spices: coriander, salt, and pepper, and of course rice. Mustn't forget the actual rice. So once this is gonna cook, come to a boil, then we lower it 35 to 40 minutes, and then you turn it off and you don't touch. Don't touch. Seriously. It's an exercise in self-restraint, in taking time slowly. Turn on your favorite meditation, sit there, take a few deep breaths. Don't be tempted to peek in. What you're doing is, again, you're trying to make sure that you let the rice, the last few morsels, get that beautiful, like the rice doesn't overcook. It locks it in, the steam works its magic. It's worth it. Now, for how long? You don't touch it for about 10-15 minutes without lifting the lid, without anything. Now, again, I want to let me know in the comments right now if anything is unclear, if I can answer anything, because I'm not going to make you guys watch me for 35 minutes have rice on the stovetop. If you're making this at home, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to show you guys what the dish looks like, but we're not going to cook it for 35 minutes right now. So please let me know if there's anything I'm missing. I'm just checking in my notes if there's anything that we need to cover. But I think we're actually pretty good. So again, if there's anything that I didn't cover that you want me to specify, please let me know. So otherwise, we're gonna do one more chopping thing. We need to decorate the top of our rice. Like I said, it's still a festive dish, and we want to make it look pretty. Now, if you have fresh herbs, this is the time to use them. I used parsley, but if you use cilantro, if you have curly parsley, great. Otherwise, don't worry about it. The other thing you can use to top the dish is, my apologies, is a little bit of nuts. I happen to use walnuts, but whatever nuts you have at home will be fine. You don't need anything fancy. So what we're gonna do is just with our hands on the back of the knife, chop the walnuts roughly. And this is just, we use what we have. We have walnuts, we use walnuts. If we have cashews, we use cashews. Almonds, use almonds. And if you have no nuts, it's fine. Now, Ellie wants to know what some of my other favorite recipes from Reordered are. Well, like I mentioned, this year I'm going to be using the matzo recipe because I'm not going to go running around different stores. My neighborhood store doesn't have matzos right now. So there is a gluten-free matzo recipe. It's actually from the Ethiopian community, because in Ethiopia, you tended to throw out every grain you had in the house before Passover. You couldn't even bake matzos. So what they did is they would bake them out of chickpeas. And that's kind of what you traditionally had. Other recipes that I really like the alfajores recipe. So if you guys joined last year for the live, we did alfajores. It's a recipe I discovered in Argentina, and I like to make it with dairy-free, with vegan dulce de leche, or dairy-free mayo lemon curd. So that's something I really like. Other recipes I really like. My grandmother's gefilte fish. I mentioned, doesn't use salmon. It's traditional carp that smells to high heaven, and whitefish, but somehow it ends up really tasty. I also really like the Argentinian chimichurri chicken that you can find. And another one that's like people don't think of often. There's the macaroons. I like the chocolate covered macaroons. And one that people don't think of often, there's a recipe for peanut soup, for chicken peanut soup from Ethiopia. I love that soup. I ate it for days. Loved it. So if you're like, that sounds weird, that recipe is gold. Seriously. My family really liked last year the lamb biryani that we made. And Jillian's asking what is the history of this recipe and how was the plov, traditional plov created. I honestly, again, my grandmother, when you sit her down and she starts talking about her childhood, it's pretty bleak. Like we're talking about days where you couldn't even get eggs. You had to buy eggs from the street. If you were lucky, and when you found them, it didn't matter. She has this one story where a relative of hers was about to board on a train from Moscow to Yekaterinburg, which is where my family grew up, and they saw eggs be on sale at the train station, and he bought 24 eggs. So they bought 24 eggs. They took them on the train from Moscow to Yekaterinburg. We're talking about a train that takes about 20 hours. They took a 20-hour train with eggs because that's how precious eggs were. So there isn't really a fancy story about like how this recipe was created. It was created because my grandmother wanted to cook plov. There was no meat. Meat was super hard to get by. She had carrots and onions, and she had ginger. I don't know how. And she actually happened to have, my grandmother had a very good garden. She tells me these days that like, I need to plant lettuce, I need to plant herbs, because in the Soviet Union, if you didn't have a garden, you wouldn't survive. So she had a garden, so she could have fresh parsley to put on top. She could have fresh carrots to use in the plov. So that's what my grandmother did. Now, like I said, we're gonna, now Ellie's gonna try the chimichurri. Excellent. It's actually super, super good. So you can see this is steaming. We're gonna lower it to the lowest setting, and we're gonna let it cook, do its thing. 35 minutes, you turn it off, and then you just wait for another 15. Now, I happened to cook this dish yesterday, so we're gonna actually now show you guys what the magic of plov really looks like. Because it's one thing to sit here and, cook this recipe that somebody tells you is tasty, but we're actually going to show you guys why it's an awesome recipe. So I made this yesterday. Because now I'm going to show you. This is what it looks like when you're going to lift the lid. All the grains of rice are well cooked. They kind of clump together a little bit. Now, again, you're going to cook this live. You're not going to cook this the day before. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a plate that's bigger than your pot. I'm going to set this aside. You're going to hold on to the plate and the pot. If this is going to fail, feel free to make fun of me. And you're going to turn it over. You're going to take your spoon, wooden spoon, very important. And you're going to beat on the back of the pot. Try not to break the plate. Yeah, there, hold on. Beat some more. What you're doing is you're trying to loosen the rice. Only half of this came out. So somebody's asking how long you have to sit the pot until you plate it. Not this long. I really wanted you guys to see the magic. The magic is barely happening. So we got half the rice, but hold on. What we're gonna do now is just kind of help it a little bit. There we go. There we go. If you're making this if you're making this to serve it right then and there, just wait, like after the 15 minutes, you can actually, you could serve it. So, trying to, hold on. Now we take, let me try and show you. We take our wooden spoon and we cover, we kind of try and make sure that we get every last little bit of this deliciousness that's at the bottom. And you're putting it on top of your rice dish. Okay. So, no. We're gonna take this. You're gonna take a clean, I'm showing you how to make it, I'm showing you how to serve this, right? You're gonna take a clean paper towel and you're gonna run it around the edges. You don't want splecks of sauce and dried fruit. You want it to look nice. So even if it doesn't turn over perfectly, no worries. That's why we have nuts and parsley. And if you don't have it, you just kind of try and make it look as pretty as you can. There we go. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna take out the parts that broke. We're gonna take our pre-chopped parsley that for some reason, I know. Okay, we're gonna take our pre-chopped parsley. We're gonna sprinkle it on top. There's little bits and pieces. Take them out. There we go. So you're gonna cover it with parsley. Okay? Then you're gonna take your nuts. You're gonna put the nuts on top. Put your nuts on top. There we go. And finally, before you serve it, a drizzle of oil. Because everything does better with a little bit more oil. Now, this is your plof. This is all you need. Get yourself a plate. Take a little bit of it off. And we're gonna eat some of it. Because after all this cooking, we deserve a bit of a treat. This is the familiar taste. So again, whether you don't need fancy ingredients, if you don't have barberries, you don't need it. Somebody's asking, what can you serve it with? I assume. So if you're not, so somebody's asking what you can serve it with. Whatever this goes with. If you're eating meat, this goes with whatever meat you're eating. It's rice, so it's super interchangeable. Now, tell me, what does your family serve for the main thing? My family serves this. My family always eats. There's always a salmon dish that my mother makes. Obviously, gefilte fish, and then for the meat, actually, oh yeah, she makes roast beef. My mom makes roast beef. She doesn't make brisket. She makes roast beef. So this is our plov. It's really good. Angela, hi Angela. So this is really delicious. I'm gonna swallow and not chew on camera in front of you guys. So like I said, if you wanna get, if you want the recipe, it's already there's a link, there's a photo. You can get it on my blog, immigrantstable.com, or even better, you can go and still get a copy of the reordered kit in digital copy. We're gonna put the link at the bottom in the post. So, and also if you're looking for a connection this Passover, again, if you missed the beginning, we're gonna put everything. I'm assured that JDC Entwine is gonna put the recipe in there. It's all gonna go there. So, or you can find it on the digital copy of the reordered, or you can find it on the blog. So like I said, if you're looking for connection, check out the thread. It's got a lot of virtual content for Entwine these days. Go talk to your friends via Zoom. If you can message, I know everybody hears it, but it really is our way to connect right now, and try and make something with them, because food is the ultimate connector for me. So even if you're eating it alone on camera, which I'm gonna do again because honestly it's this good. I'm sorry. And I'm hungry. You don't need a lot of salt. All the flavor comes from the dried fruit and the long cooking. So thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. And we have Tiana Nishama says the reordered kit is awesome. I totally agree. I love it. I used it the first year that it came out, and we're gonna use it again this year because Passover is gonna look very different. And that's the reality. And we have to try and make the best out with it we can do. I mentioned my grandmother, it's gonna be the first Passover she does completely alone. This is my way of eating it with her. So I invite you to make this traditional Ukrainian plov, or make something else that speaks to your family and helps you guys feel close to them. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you, and Chag Sameach. Have a great day.